I Still Call Australia Home by Sylvia Tracy of Belmont 2280. Narrated by Janine Penfold. Growing up in Ireland, or should I say Derry in Northern Ireland, I was left feeling I wasn't really Irish. We were referred to as British. Even though I was born of two parents that were Irish, my mother was a beautiful lady from Dublin. Ironically, my parents met in England, got married there in Surrey, and came back to Derry. During the 1600s, Derry was changed to Londonderry by the British as a royal gift of sorts. Most people still referred to this beautiful city as Derry. At the time of the name change there ensued a great debate, which led to a civil war and many unnecessary deaths. In the 1960s, the Troubles, as it was so unremarkably labelled, saw around 4,000 people lose their lives. The war was between what they called the Loyalists, who wanted to stay with England, and those who wanted Ireland to be reunited. My school was situated on the Derry Walls, the only remaining completely walled city in Ireland and one of the finest examples of walled cities in Europe. The Derry Walls were built during the period 1613 to 1618 by the Irish Society as defences for early 17th century settlers from England and Scotland. The British Army was camped at our school walls from 1969. We thought this was normal, walking to school alongside armoured tanks, barricades, rubber bullets, hand grenade shells and uniformed men with riot shields. We clambered up the sandbag enclaves and sat next to the machine guns. We had a big tarmac slope in our playground that the soldiers used the soles of their boots to shine when it was laden with ice and made a slide for us. We flew down this hill at a rate of knots into the arms of the soldiers, who prevented many a fractured bone, I'm sure. We whooped and hollered like normal kids, unaware of what was really happening around us. Some of the soldiers were barely 9 years older than me, at 18, and the fear in their eyes was apparent. No British soldier wanted Northern Ireland as a tour of duty. When I was 13, we were supposed to move to Australia. However, in July 1973, we went instead to England with my father's job. Including my siblings and my mother, 7 of us got on a plane that day to fly to Heathrow. Reverend Ian Paisley, who was a troublesome voice primarily against the Catholic population, was on the same flight. He had driven the Catholics out of Northern Ireland in the 60s, removing them from their jobs and from their homes, which became the underpinning reason for much retaliation and atrocities. When we moved to England, my brother and I, he was 10 at the time, had broken bricks hurled at us for being Irish by the local kids in Newcastle upon Tyne, where we had ended up for a short time. For the next 27 years that I lived in England, I was taunted and teased for being Irish and was the brunt of many jokes about the Irish intellect being inferior. Eventually, at 40 years old, I moved to Australia with my English partner. We had been on holiday here in 1998 for a month because of a travel award I had won for work. We welcomed the opportunity to pursue our favourite hobbies of windsurfing, motorcycling and scuba diving without having to scrape the ice off our equipment in the winter months. The holiday excited us so that once back in the UK, we put in motion everything we needed in order to move to Australia. Just over a year later, in 2000, days before Sydney hosted the Olympic Games, we arrived in our new country. We both would be found weeping when we heard the wonderful Qantas choir sing "I Still Call Australia Home." It really spoke to our hearts after such a big journey away from family and friends. I was welcomed with open arms by the Australians as an Irish person, with statements similar to, "We love the Irish." They teased my partner mercilessly for being English. They said things like, "Oh dear," and "never mind," and pretended to walk away. I think he finally realised what I had tolerated for such a long time. This was a very strange turn of events for me. I am not anti-English. It just was what it was. I love Australia, its people, their irreverence, and the country's incredible haunting landscape. It really is paradise, and I feel blessed and grateful to live here. However, every time I meet someone new, they ask me, why did I move to Australia and how long have I been here? It's now 24 years. For many years, I heard a voice that called me to the outback, a voice that said, "Come see, come see." I have stood barefoot in the vast Simpson Desert, pushing my toes into the sand. I felt roots here, roots that bored through the earth and planted me there. How could a curly, blonde-haired, blue-eyed Irish girl belong in the desert? Why did I feel that pull so strongly? In later years, I worked in an Indigenous clinic in the Northern Territory, where I learned that there had been many Irish settlers previously. Perhaps there is a connection between Ireland and Australia that can't be explained. As a person with 2 passports, British and Australian, and entitled to an Irish one, the place that I consider home is Australia. I'll never know why my life panned out the way it did, to bring me here to peace, to an unmatched beauty, to oceans I sail and scuba dive and swim in, to a great sense of humour and opportunity, to actors and musicians I applaud, and a country that respects the Irish that came before me. My parents passed away before I moved here. I wish they had the opportunity to come see. I thank you, Australia, for having me. The end.